Hello, and thank you for clicking on my video. My name is Jackson, and I run a Dungeon Master coaching service called TrueSight. I've had the privilege of being a professional Dungeon Master for over 3 years, and for the last 12 years I've had the pleasure of getting to play and run thousands of role-playing hours with hundreds of interesting people. That's a good amount of experience, but it hasn't made me a perfect Dungeon Master. I was raised in a very critical and demanding environment, and unfortunately I carried that with me into college and beyond. When I hear another Dungeon Master being hard on themselves for not knowing the rules, struggling with self-identified imposter syndrome, or working countless hours to deliver a critical role-quality adventure, I can empathize with what they're going through. It's pretty common amongst DMs or game masters, judges, etc., because this advice applies to any tabletop role-playing game runners, particularly those trying to break into the field as a career or aspiring writers who use D&D to cultivate their own stories. Now, that's not to say everyone's situation is exactly like mine, so please, if you're listening to this and you immediately leaned in when I mentioned feeling bad about not running a good game, listen to what I have to say. But consider how your unique circumstances may be causing your unique feelings. If this is a very serious issue for you, remember that I'm not a therapist. We can all help each other out in this community, but if your work ethic towards the game is causing a spiral into depression, rage, or severe burnout, then I urge you to take the next step and seek an evaluation with a mental health professional. Disclaimers out of the way? Okay. You don't have to be perfect. Dungeon mastering takes an investment of knowledge and prep time before you cultivate expertise. That's normal. You're going to be bad before you get good. Does that sound like familiar advice you've heard before? Maybe about pursuing an art, hobby, or job? Good. That's because D&D is just another hobby. I've run games for doctors and lawyers who are hard on themselves because they have specialized expertise and degrees in their fields, but can't seem to keep a grappling check straight. That's okay. I'd rather that player know how to perform their heart surgery tomorrow than recite the rules for vision and cover verbatim. Your brain is another very physical organ in your body. Give it a break. Give yourself a break. If you want to be an expert, that will come with time and practice. You don't have to be the best. Coming from the perspective of American public schools, sports, the job market, and career ladders, so much of our lives are consumed by competition. You have to make varsity this year. You have to meet that deadline. You have to get the right GPA and SAT scores. Your tabletop role-playing doesn't have to be like that. And it probably shouldn't. It can just be you and your friends sitting down to play make-believe and occasionally do some math with colorful number cubes. That's what this hobby is, after all. Now, if you're like me a few years ago, stepping up to the professional D&D scene, you might say, "But Jackson, I'm a pro. People are paying me to run an above-average gaming session, so I owe it to them to be better than the amateurs running kitchen table games." Well, self from 2 years ago, I'm happy to say that's not the case. Yes, you should take responsibility for your job and deliver a decent product. But unless your players are paying absolute premium rates, your game doesn't have to be the most incredible experience of their lives. If you relax, play to your strengths, and remember that you're allowed to have a good time too, I bet that those wind up being your best sessions that your player clients remember. Breathe. Run the game. Your players appreciate you. You don't have to be great. Shows like Critical Role, The Adventure Zone, and Dimension 20 have done amazing things for the tabletop role-playing hobby. The production and charisma behind these shows have brought D&D into the light from the dreary stigma of our moms' basements. The DMs on these shows display incredible skill with more than just voices in the way they run combat and promote their players to have incredible moments. Plenty of new DMs have been inspired to mimic these good role models. But here's the thing. These professional entertainers are given lots of time and money to do this. You probably aren't able to commit the same amount of time and money, so naturally, you won't be producing the same final product. Your game can be played with pennies on graph paper with no funny accents and still be a fun time for you and your friends. It doesn't have to be great. You're allowed to have a good time without being something grand. You can make bad rules calls, underpower your final boss, and forget to weave in clues to your world-shattering mystery. That's okay. As long as you and your players have a decent time, that time is a treasure. By the way, your D&D game doesn't have to produce a podcast or a comic or even a detailed written summary. Time with your friends is valuable enough on its own. You don't have to prove it to anyone else. Wrapping up, if you catch yourself thinking, I'm not good enough. I'm not a real DM. My friends deserve better. My clients deserve better. Please, repeat after me. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to be great. Think of it like cooking. Are there fantastic 5-star chefs out there? Yes, absolutely. And they deserve respect and renown. But if you, a home cook, invited your family over to a cookout, they wouldn't expect you to serve up 5-star gourmet hamburgers. Hell, you could make bland, overcooked burgers, but by the time it's digested, I bet no one really cares that much because you're there for the people, not for the burger. You'd say, oh well, guess I'd make a better burger next time, and move on with your week. So you know what I didn't mention when it comes to DMing? You don't even have to be good. Just like making those hamburgers, it's not the end of the world if you have a bad session. Think about what went wrong, seek out some YouTube videos or one of your D&D books to see what you can do better next time, but before any of that, don't beat yourself up over it. Your desire to do better next time should come from a sense of fulfillment, not from guilt. If you want to do better, there's help out there. I do provide a Dungeon Master coaching service, and you might find help seeking advice at your local game store community, but I'd recommend starting with the players at your table. You can ask, what could have been better? But start with, what was your favorite part? You'll learn a lot from knowing what your strengths are before shoring up your weak points. If your players keep showing up to your games, you're doing something right. Lean into those strengths and don't weigh yourself down with small mistakes. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to be great. You don't even have to be good. Please, love yourself. Love the time you get to spend with your friends in make-believe dungeon fights. And have a nat 20 day.